little bit harder when you're tired.
Paige, you have an audience.
Oh my gosh, look at the cows! Unbound Gravel is a race that is near and dear to my heart. With 200 miles of grueling terrain, it's critical to recon the course, dial in nutrition, equipment, and your mental plan in order to have success out there. But most importantly, if you show up to Unbound, it's paramount that you respect the foundation upon which this hellish adventure was built.
It's changed a lot. Obviously starting in 2006 with no GPS and just cue sheets. In the early days, it was a little bit more choose your own adventure, if you will.
It was considerably different. There was no crowds, there was no, big finish line. You left from a hotel parking lot, you returned to a hotel parking lot.
I really think we kind of had lightning in a bottle here when we started at the right time, the right place.
It was uncharted territory for all of us, but it's gratifying to see how it's grown over the years.
20 years ago, Emporia was not a cycling town. There were a dozen of us that rode bikes. Now there are hundreds. Of the 4,000 people lining up to take on Unbound, 10% of them come from within a 20-mile radius of Emporia, Kansas.
The Flint Hills are a very unexpected treasure. It's part of the tallgrass prairie. It's one of 2 remaining strands in the whole world.
People come to the Flint Hills and they're literally and figuratively blown away by the beauty and also the challenge of it. So we don't have mountains in Kansas, but we have mountains of wind. Having done 11 of these at this point, I can say without a doubt that the north courses are always harder. There's definitely chunkier, sharper climbs up north. It's more rugged than it is going south. There's some sections there that you don't want to drive a car on at all. It'll be an interesting day for sure.
So right now we're prepping to go for a ride, doing some recon, and mostly just checking out the course, seeing what the north course is like, checking out the chunk, seeing what the hills are like. I'm collecting gear data while I'm out here in my drivetrain to help dial in some drivetrain settings and dial in pressure, seeing how that feels. Whenever I race, I split up the course into sections, especially a race this long. If you view it as one go of 200 miles, it's a bit demoralizing. So kind of break it up into important sections that you should be, thinking about. First section of the course is relatively unexplanatory. Typical Emporia gravel, some chunk, loose corners. Mile 40, you ride through a town called Eskridge. After Eskridge, things can get really chunky at that point. So lots of big rocks, a lot of up and down, so you can really be hitting those rocks at speed. So that's when I think a lot of the flats could potentially happen. And then around mile 70, you ride through Elma, which is the first aid station. So you're gonna have to make about 70 miles without any help. And that first 70 miles has a lot of climbing, about 4,000 to 5,000 foot, depending on which program you're looking at. And then there's a pretty steady climb out of Elma too. So 5 miles worth of mostly uphill. I think that's gonna catch people by surprise as well. And it's funny too, a lot of times on the course, you'll see these weird rectangular loops, and a lot of times that could be a minimal maintenance road. There's a reason the race organizers are sending you there and then back near the same point. So sometimes that can be a cue too.
The course is actually pretty sweet. I think it's gonna challenge everything: equipment, fitness, mind, your body. Other than just producing power, you're gonna have to be durable.
And a really important section of the course is going to come around mile 105. And that is kind of an iconic section called Little Egypt. So it's this little jaggedy little section of the course. You can kind of see down here in the elevation, there's actually some climbing before. So the section before Little Egypt is pretty important. This is a pretty fast downhill, which is where I flatted. And then you go into Little Egypt.
is right at the rim. Rim's unscathed, so that's good. There we go.
I think Little Egypt is interesting because it's more of a longer sustained climb, but it's also pretty loose. It's an MMR, so the route can be variable depending on the weather. So there could be mud, there's larger rock too, there's a dip down like a creek, so that could fill up with water, which makes it really hard to see any rock features. It's just big chunk. But this course has a lot of sections that are like Little Egypt. You know, they might be shorter, but they're still hard, they're rocky, they're loose, and they're steep. So I think the race is gonna be really dynamic. You know, people are gonna be hurting even before Little Egypt, and then to have that long of a section that's tough can really pop people off for sure. Additionally, out there, the wind, like it will say 10 miles per hour, but once you're out there, it feels like sustained 15 to 20, and then the gusts are even stronger. The more you're prepared for that, the better. Don't be caught off guard by what the weather says. And then mile 148 is Council Grove, and that is gonna be where the second aid station is at. And from there, looking at a map, you might think, okay, I just have a little over 50 miles home, but there's some hard climbs out of Council Grove that when I rode were much harder feeling than what they looked on paper. I also remember there's a section around a mile 175. There's a lake. You hit a little bit of pavement and it feels so good. It's like, like the legs, the body can relax a little. And then you're back on gravel and you have this, you know, steady climb that is not that bad, but after 150 miles of Flint Hills gravel racing, you're gonna feel it. From there, it's pretty flat-ish. The last 50 miles only has 2,000 foot of climbing, so a little bit easier on the legs and body coming into the finish there.
How do you think the race is going to play out this year?
It's going to depend on the wind. Ultimately, this course is going to come down to a race of attrition and who, you know, is mentally tough and can deal with the equipment damages that will happen, because it's going to happen. You're going to flat. You need to expect that. And so how fast can you change flats, repair things, stay committed to staying focused, to moving forward, just always moving forward, even if it feels like a slog. And hopefully we see some fun people do some comebacks, and I wouldn't count anyone out on this course with the wind and the terrain. Even if they have a bad start, it's a very long day.
So Paige is coming up the Little Egypt section of the North course, and she's gonna practice changing her inner tubes, getting ready for race day, and just trying to dial the efficiency of getting the tubeless valve out, as well as getting the new tube in and just making sure everything seats properly so she can keep rolling. Behind.
So you want to practice putting tubes in when you're tired and stressed. We'll worry about that when we put it back on. Well, we know we need to practice that. Because in a race, your mind is not always fully there. All right, this is like a 30-second penalty with these valves. All right, note to self, shorter valves. So when you decide to put a tube in, you want to make sure, like Brad said, you take out the plugs. So now I gotta remember where those are at. So if you look in here, you can see them. If you don't take these out, they'll puncture your tube. So, did you dump the sealant or does it matter?
For this, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, there we go.
There it goes.
One more little pop. We good. Okay. What was my time?
30 minutes, 45 seconds.
Oh, man, got some work to do. Well,
It looks so stupid. It's got to warm up, you know? Paige gets ready in the morning. I got to get ready in the morning.
You gotta get those tries going.
Yeah, dude.
Do 10 sets of these.
Every day.
did you paint this, Brad?
It's truck bed liner.
Truck bed liner?
Yeah.
Wait, am I supposed to ride up against this?
So my thought is
What
that
is
would be like a
this?
sidewall gash,
Oh, yeah.
and this would be like a straight-on puncture.
We're mostly testing a couple sealant options because,
Right.
so there's latex sealant, there's non-latex sealant.
What do you think? You wanna come check it out?
You get a good stick there, huh? And then we've been trying out, Brad's been adding carbon to my sealants,
Right.
and we've been testing how that is helping things seal. And it seems to be working pretty well. Like it worked well today on the ride, and it seems to plug up more.
Daisy, coming after you. You missed. Both.
I think I hit.
They're just bomb-proof tires. For the record, these tires are already shot. It's not flatting it.
Let's try to stick it with a pick.
Okay. Yep. Grab the pick.
All right, so it's 100% in.
Okay. That's it? Already sealed. Okay.
Here's our sidewall gasher. I don't know if this is gonna seal. It'll be a big one, but you ready?
Yep. Wow! That seals? Wow, that already sealed. Okay, that was impressive. All right, decision's done.
So it needs to seal. So I use
What do you got? What do you got?
Oh, she was on it.
She likes it. Remember? This is Daisy. Daisy's a star. Daisy is my friend Ben's dog, and she's my recovery support dog while I'm here training in Emporia. She likes licks, massage guns, and
And me.
and John. John's her favorite, isn't he? It's pretty grueling out there. Like, the course is really exposed. It can be hot, windy, can be alone for long sections. And I just find the stuff I do off the bike can help me be a little bit more mentally tough. I think one thing that's really cool about Unbound and races like Unbound, you talk to anyone that's finished this race, and they have some sort of story of how they've changed, or they went to a dark side and came out of it. You challenge who you are, you challenge why you're out there, and a lot of times that's more mental than physical, and you have to overcome a lot of demons when there's a lot of things that are outside of your control. It's easy to think through like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. But once you're out there, that's kind of the truth about yourself unfolds and how tough you are. And you gotta process all that in the moment. Ultra events are heavily tied to like an emotional response. So I encourage everyone to ask themselves, why are you doing this? Why are you out there? Why are you gonna push your body past what it's ever been pushed past before? If you can answer that why, then you're more likely to refocus in some of the tougher moments. Think of, the people that have encouraged you along the way, that have given up, hours and allowed you to train. Those sort of connections can really help you push through in the dark moments too. Hey, Daisy. I'm just gonna lay out my nutrition for today and then talk about how it's gonna be different on race day. I'm gonna have this be my tracker. So today I'll do a 6-hour ride, and then tomorrow I'll do a 5-hour ride, and then another 2-hour ride. So the goal today is mostly like endurance, so I'll be like kind of putting in about 60 grams of carb an hour. And then in the last like bit of my ride, I'm gonna be reconning a really important part of the race at race pace. So then I'll probably fuel closer to like 90 grams of carb an hour. So in my pack, I'm gonna put in mostly electrolytes, so big fan of the Mortal Hydration. But then on a race day, I'll target 120 grams of carb an hour. I also, when I'm racing like a longer day, or like even today, if you're out on your bike for 6 hours, you're gonna miss a meal or two. And so around that time, I make myself like a real food, like it's a pancake with jam. I have that around like meal times, and I feel like that helps my body with my circadian rhythm, and I just generally feel better. On race day, I'll probably do, I really like the First Endurance high carb drink mix. So I usually will have, these are big bottles, so I'll generally have 120. And it depends when it's hot. I tend to drink more, and then I'll do more like gels and real food versus drinking the carbs in, especially later in the race. Daisy, you back? Yeah? You wanna go for a ride with me? In the beginning, it's like super chaotic and stressful in the pack, so it's just easier to have you drink the carbs. But then as the day goes on, I transition out of that a bit. Carbs give you superhuman powers, it feels like, especially after that 4 to 5, 6 hour mark. That's when fueling becomes even more critical. So I think some recommendations, like you have to practice what you're eating, and like I practice what I'm eating in training. My coach has me do gut training days, all these different things. But it's also important to have like backup plans, right? So a lot of people are really pushing these high carb, but when you are thirsty and you can't stomach high carb, you still need to drink. And that's why it's important to know, like, okay, if I'm not stomaching this, what's my plan at the aid station? What's the backup plan for getting fluids in? And on this course, the North course is much chunkier, and so I think people are gonna forget to eat because they're gonna want their hands on the bars and might be stressed out about the terrain, but you still have to have a method of like how you're getting this food in every hour. Unbound is just an eating contest. So if you can keep eating, then you're probably pretty good, especially later on in the race. Like that race, we've seen it so many times, like people coming back the second half, and it's people that know how to fuel, and they can keep eating. When the never-ending gravel roads miraculously weave back to town and life restores to the way it was, you remember why we do it. The journey to the brink and back again brings you closer to a universal truth. It's always been about the people.
Oh, tonight's Wednesday Night Worlds in Emporia. We're behind Malrady's Tavern. Pretty much I don't know, weekly 20 to 25 mile time trial. Just get out, ride fast, and then have a beer.
It's fantastic. It's awesome. Born and raised here. Unbound's the reason I ride bikes. That's why I started, just seeing everybody finishing for years, and just decided to get part of it. And I've really enjoyed it, and it's a really inclusive community.
I mean, I don't have a shark, but maybe I have to ask him that.
I bet he would totally think.
You know, everyone wants to know the economic impact, but we often don't talk about how it transformed a community. Unbound was a part of leading that cultural identity to say, oh, we do have something special here. We do have something to share with the world, and we want to invite people in and participate in that.
There's probably 6 to 7 group rides happening in Emporia, Kansas every single week. Ultimately, just being able to have a community that supports that environment and fosters cycling is a really great thing.
There's a lot made about the spirit of gravel, and you know, whether the professionalism of it and people doing it for a living or whatever is going to ruin gravel. I think there's a lot of room on the gravel roads for everybody. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the experience that a pro has is not dissimilar than the experience that somebody that's finishing at midnight has or 2 a.m. They're all leaving it out there. It just happens to be that the pros are doing it a little faster.
At the heart of it, the mission is still the same, to provide a life-changing experience right here in the heart of the Midwest and Emporia and these Flint Hills. And people get that chance. And that hasn't changed, and I don't see that ever changing in the future.